Alright, guys, things are getting spicy once again. Trump just ramped up the chip war. Now, by now, everyone knows the game plan. It's the entire basis for the tariff war, especially when it comes to semiconductors. Now, Trump loves his TSMC plant in Arizona. Basically, he wants more chip factories in the desert. He wants his allies and trading partners to shift all their production to the US. And once you see everything through this lens, everything starts to make perfect sense. The US is getting desperate, but Trump has telegraphed the punch and the agenda months ago.
Particularly in the very near future, we're going to be placing tariffs on foreign production of computer chips, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals to return production of these essential goods to the United States of America. They left us and they went to Taiwan, which is about 98% of the chip business, by the way. They didn't need money. They needed an incentive. And the incentive is going to be they're not going to want to pay a 25, 50, or even 100% tax. They're going to build their factory with their own money. We don't have to give them money. They're going to come in because it's good for them to come in.
Now, what is the basis of free trade? You create stuff in your country that is more efficient and then you sell it to me. I import the stuff from you because it's cheaper, higher quality, and I don't want to do something that I'm just lousy in. It's not rocket science, but Trump wants to flip the entire basis of free trade on its head. Shifting everything to the US is a risky move, but he has already pulled the trigger. There's no going back now. The US just put the chip waivers for their allies. Shipments of chip supplies to China will now be extremely controlled. So TSMC, Samsung, and SK Hynix cannot freely sell or shift their chip making gear to Chinese companies or even to mainland China. They will have to get Washington's approval to make it happen, and if they don't, these companies might get punished. Maybe the entire country could get clobbered. The tariffs could climb even higher. Now, this move is dangerous. Trump just tore apart a compromise given by the Biden administration to allow all these companies to still do business in China. And when you look at things from Washington's perspective, it actually makes some sense. If your end goal is to ship production home, this would most definitely push your allies or at least threaten them to reshore production. Now, take Korea's memory chip production in China. If gears can't be shipped there, suddenly making the chips will get more difficult. China accounts for 10 to 14% of Korean chipmakers' global production. And why are they making the chips in China? Because the cost of production just makes sense. The Chinese market is a huge consumer, so most or probably all of the supply there gets bought by local companies. So Trump is trying to accomplish two goals here: deny China access to chips within their own economy and force its allies to ship production elsewhere. And that elsewhere is obviously to the United States. So why this sudden move? If Nvidia can sell their chips to China, why can't US allies continue to produce chips in China restriction free? And it all boils down to the chip war and how Beijing is making enormous progress on that front. Now remember trillions, the amount of money, the trillions that were wiped out of US tech companies during the DeepSeek moment? Well, we are headed for a second coming of another DeepSeek shock. China's AI darling is about to launch its AI agent for end 2025 to challenge OpenAI. And this means an autonomous AI model that can carry out commands and do multi-step actions with minimal inputs. The user is more or less hands-free. Suddenly, the amount of applications is endless because China is the king of industry in the world. You have autonomous driving, more efficient electric grids, to robo factories. The possibilities are endless. And this is freaking Trump out. And that's why he's demanding tons of investment dollars from his trade partners. And where do you think the hundreds of billions from Japan and Korea are gonna go? Now, Trump can't afford to directly block Nvidia from China because it will destroy revenue. So he's using global chip companies as pawns on his grand chessboard because China's AI progress is simply stunning. Now, on the leaderboard, the most popular AI chatbot is still ChatGPT. They have over 46 billion visits over the past 12 months. But look who is in second place. China's DeepSeek has 2.7 billion visits. Yes, it is a far cry, but realize China's chatbot is being barred in certain G7 countries. It is still ahead of other chatbots, American chatbots like Perplexity, Gemini, and Grok. And if China's AI keeps progressing, especially with free access to high tech chips, then it will emerge as a big competitor to OpenAI. Chinese users and other Asian users will be able to sustain the chatbot. So there's this very big push and pull with US chip makers themselves. They know they can't exit the Chinese chip market because it's the biggest in the world. It's a $50 billion market on the verge of being lost.
It's in the best interest of the world, of our country, for us to be able to sell in China, have China's AI companies and AI researchers build AI on top of the American tech stack. Whatever it takes to get it approved for us to be able to sell in China is fine with us. And we just want to make sure that the American tech stack is the world's global tech stack.
Now, the US wants the world, including China, to use American chips to build their AI models and other applications on NVIDIA's platform or stack, basically to create dependency. Moving all chip production to the US will help with that end goal. And if by some chance TSMC, Samsung, and SK Hynix move their factories to Arizona, then Trump wins. The US will control the supply and production of advanced AI chips, but will it really happen? Now, I doubt it because US partners aren't that stupid. They would become total dependents on Washington. And our second story confirms the shift eastwards towards China. Now, as it stands, Trump desperately wants to end the Russia-Ukraine war, but the talks have stalled as everyone predicted. So we are in a diplomatic stalemate, and for Russia, they are still facing huge energy tariffs, sanctions, not just from the US, but from the EU as well. Now, I believe we are at the 19th sanctions package, number 19, today, so go figure. Russia and China have officially signed an agreement to build the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline. This huge supply line will originate from the Yamal Peninsula, cut across Mongolia, and end up directly within northeastern China. Russia's going to supply China with an additional 50 billion cubic meters of gas annually. The affordable Arctic gas that Europe once got is going to flow into Chinese markets. This is the ultimate G7 nightmare. Russia and China are even closer than before, closer than back in 2024 or 2023. You have a commodity giant working together with essentially a manufacturing planet. Remember demand and supply. Now that China is probably Russia's biggest customer for gas, Beijing is going to get a very, very, very sweet deal from Putin. For Russia, it also makes sense. They get to sanction-proof themselves essentially forever. Now, the price of gas sold to China would be substantially lower than what Gazprom charges EU buyers, and a big consideration is the logistics. Selling to Chinese markets is nearer, and the terrain is less painful than building over mountains. So this move really changes the landscape. It locks in Russian revenues for decades to come, and for China, their ability to manufacture at scale is locked in as well. This is the big difference between the US and BRICS. While Trump is throwing around his sanctions, tariffs, and his shakedowns, the global majority is playing in the physical world. They are directly shifting supply chains to corner off the West. Europe will continue to get devastated because now over 100 billion cubic meters a year of gas will be headed to China. And that's why we have tragic headlines from the EU just like this one's. Lost the battle, French and German economists are telling the EU to accept defeat against China's solar power sector. German chemical plants are running at their lowest level since 1991. They are running at just 72% capacity. Not only are German automakers in crisis, now the chemical industry is on life support. But do you see the common thread, the common theme that threads all this tragedy together? Is the absence of cheap energy. Affordable Russian oil and gas is flowing to China like never before. And you don't need a genius to connect the dots. A blind monkey can see what's going on. And for the US, this also isn't good news. Trump's game plan is to turn the US into a manufacturing hub. He wants the US to become an export economy that sells more than just Boeing planes. Now, how is Trump going to compete with China? It's simply impossible. He has sandwiched US industries in an impossible situation while President Xi has a royal flush in this poker game. With his tariffs, Trump has raised production costs for the US. At the same time, China is lowering theirs. How can you possibly hope to win? To no one's surprise, US manufacturing has officially contracted for the sixth straight month. PMI, which is a leading indicator, came in at 48.7. Anything below 50 is a contraction. Factories are reporting worse conditions than the Great Recession. Lo and behold, what is the biggest complaint from US industries? Import duties making it difficult to manufacture goods in the United States. How feasible is Trump's reshoring plan now if you're TSMC or a Japanese automaker? Seriously, how much confidence do you have in committing to $1 billion plant in the US? Not much. Firstly, you definitely can't export overseas. Secondly, consumers in the US are losing buying power. When prices increase by 10 to 20%, and that's being very generous, you obviously will start buying less. And this is where the snowball effect starts to impact the US economy. A lot of people are starting to lose their jobs, and the pain is actually greater than we all expected. According to Goldman, the BLS could be dropping a bombshell on the markets in just a few days. And boy, if this is right, we could see a big crash incoming. A downward revision of nearly a million jobs might be coming for the 12 months ending March 2025. This is even before the tariff war began. Now imagine how the non-farm payrolls will look like in the subsequent quarters. When people start consuming less, when the cost of living rises, this just cascades directly into unemployment. Tech companies are laying off people. We all know that. We can see that devastation, and US manufacturing is in trouble. And once again, China and Russia partnering together is just going to make things worse. Once the cheap gas starts flowing, we'll see even bigger pressures on US export industries, and trust and believe that China can manufacture almost anything on planet Earth. And let this sink in. The Challenger report has recorded almost 900,000 job cuts, the highest year-to-date figure since 2020. During the pandemic, we saw almost 2 million jobs evaporate. So will things get as bad as the lockdowns? Maybe not, but the effects won't be good. We are already in the twilight zone, in the danger zone, and things are just getting worse. Now, Trump has really done the impossible. He has managed to push Russia and China closer together. He has also managed to bring India back to the fold. So we have to give Trump a good salute here. US doctrine has always been to keep the great powers separated and never combined. But this new pipeline and expansion of BRICS, things have really changed. And just listen to Putin about this new pipeline. He knows it's a game changer, and the plan is to fully support China, and by proxy, this also helps to support BRICS.
And of course, it will bring economic advantage and competitive advantages to our Chinese friends because they will receive the product at a weighted and balanced market price, not at an increased premium price like we're seeing in Europe. And it's also reliability of supply. And everyone is satisfied with that. We'll have a 50 billion through Mongolia. Now we have 38. And then we'll have a couple of additional routes, all to expand the total volume. And all in all, it will be over 100 billion cubic meters of gas.
So things are not looking good for Trump. The longer this trade war continues, the more surprises will come. And very soon, we could see countries like Japan or even Korea slowly shift their business towards BRICS. The more Trump tightens his grips, the more US allies will slip through his fingers.